People of God, y'all doing all right? I'm doing okay. I think I might have torn something here yesterday at church. I was playing and singing, and I got too excited and went those high notes. Not good for me, but I haven't did any practice on warming up, and so hope I didn't tear something. But anyway, I'm going to continue with the show. Today's show is the roof. The roof. The roof is on fire. We don't need no. y'all know the rest. The Nottoway Plantation burning. All right. Now I heard about this place and then just went away from my brain cells. It's back on the scene. Well, it's not there anymore. And I want to see why is it that there's such a great celebration around the country by African Americans about this burning, and why is it that white media don't want to bring up the real reason behind it even being erected. 60. You good. Don't stop it. Bass.
It's the show that will get you thinking, and where the topics are hot. Feel free to comment whether we agree or not, 'cause he's got something to say.
Sirwalterj Jones. Sirwalterj Jones.
He's got something to say. Sirwalterj Jones.
Sirwalterj Jones.
Report live 7 days a week, always on time, but this time is not free. Sirwalterj Jones, always on fleek. Latest trending topics had you jumping out your seat.
He's got something to say.
Come on in, boys. The water is fine.
Hello, everybody. Sirwalterj Jones Show. I'm here. It is the evening edition, baby. How y'all is coming in? Water fine. Y'all doing all right, bunkers? Good to see all of you who are guests to the Sirwalterj Jones Show. Hit the subscribe button if you like, and share, thumbs up, and all the stuff that the moderators are telling y'all to do, but I forget to tell y'all, all right? It's good to subscribe to us because we talk about stuff that maybe you like, maybe you don't like. Today we're talking about something that we all like and don't like. This Nottoway Plantation burned down. A lot of young people don't know the history behind this plantation. Those of you in the South do. And it seems like whenever any kind of news break forth, it has a racial tone to it. I don't care what it is. If something happens in the stock market, it's racially motivated. If something happens politically, it's racially motivated. Something happens at the church, something happens in a grocery store, it's racially motivated. It's difficult to live in America and not talk about race. And there is such a division among us that we thought, as silly as we were, that things were getting better when it came to race relations. Good to see you, Naaman Williams, Tanya, Kojic. Good to see y'all, Monkey Moves, Humphrey, all you beautiful people of God out there. Tina Moore, blessings to you. April Echoes. It's difficult. So what I'm going to do is, like I always do, Ray of Sunshine, is bring up some of the history of the racial tension and why it makes sense, why the burning of this plantation caused African Americans from around the country to celebrate the way they do. And the response from those who are white, the response to the way they do, and then there are those who are in the middle, who are looking at both sides, act the darn fool. And we are, because we are believers, we don't act the way they do. And I know, brother, Mr. Rapper had his way last month at the Super Bowl with the song, "They're Not Like Us." Well, whether we adopt that saying or not, believers, y'all know that the world is not like us, and we do not respond negatively when the world acts the way they do when calamity happens, even if the person or thing or entity is an enemy of you and your family and what you stand for. There's still dignity that should be upheld among believers. You know why? Because God is looking at us, number one. Number two, the world is looking at how we respond to racial strife and calamity and how others are celebrating something. It goes back, I'm much farther back, but I remember when Trayvon Martin was walking at night, and he was eating his Starburst, I think it was. What was that? Candy that he was eating and drinking. And George Zimmerman, who was Barney Fife, wasn't working for the police department. He just thought he was a neighborhood watchman. Murdered that young man. This was February 26, 2012. And it turned into a white against black, although George Zimmerman is not considered white. But he passed. Because when we saw him, he was white. Because he killed Zimmerman. And it turned, Skittles, thank you, Terry Johnson. And it turned into, BW, good to see you. It turned into a racial thing because he killed one of our own, a young black man. And to hear the audio message gripped our hearts. And Arizona T, thank you, K-Jax on YouTube. And it was even myself, I was gripped and moved and hurt by the audio that I heard and how you heard the screaming and what have you. And then the court proceedings and what have you, and the freeing, but what the focus was on white America, black America, the dividing line. O.J. Simpson, it was said that he killed his wife and her best friend, or I don't know if he was her best friend, but the young man who was living a different lifestyle. And right there, I mean, everybody was there when the verdict was getting ready to come, and he was standing there with his lawyers. And when they said not guilty, the news knew to film blacks and whites in separate places around the country. And you will see an all-black audience when they said not guilty, and the screaming of hooray and celebration. Y'all remember that? Cameron Cooley, I'm with you. When you're right, I'm with you. I'm not gonna put it on the screen, but when you're right, I'm with you. When you look at the white audience, you heard the sadness, the somberness, the crying, the gnashing of teeth. This is when we really first saw the division that continued in America for you people who was ignorant enough to think that we all now singing Kumbaya and we loving on each other. So when Trayvon Martin was unalived, we saw it again. And then a few years later, another young black man, I don't remember if he was young or not, he was killed by a white police in Kenosha. Y'all remember that? And this little boy, I think he might have been 17 years old, was brandishing a AR-15, walking up and down the street trying to protect, he said, the neighborhood. His name was Kyle Rittenhouse. Anybody remember him? How many of y'all remember him? Let me see if I can find something on Brother Kyle. I know I got something here. Yeah, right here.
Mr. Rosenbomb.
Remember him?
Mr. Rosenbomb was now running from my right side. And I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski. And there were There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, pal.
That's what I...
His mom.
Right, run.
We're gonna just take it. Time for our break anyway. You can.
His mama brought him down there. And that little tear-jerky moment right there caused white folks from all over the country say, oh, take my money. Because there was a GoFundMe. Take all my money.
Account of the information, Joseph Rosenbomb.
And then the verdict.
Defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information.
And he collapses.
Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdict as read? Would you wish the jury pulled? Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done, and
Y'all remember that? And his lawyer saying, breathe, man. Breathe, man.
we started just about 3 weeks ago.
Calm
And
down.
I told you it could last.
And people were saying he might have been, mental, autistic, all kind of stuff was happening. That was tough. He was still on his tours. White, what you call those subgroups were supporting him with their monies. Oh, he was racking in the dough, and he was speaking at a lot of these, and some of y'all may say Klan rallies. He didn't kill black people. He had killed 2 men who were white who were protesting on the black side. And this is why the conservative side began to support him. Not long ago, Austin Metcalf, a white man, was fatally stabbed at a track meet by a student, Carmelo Anthony, a black man. Do y'all remember that? Well, you should remember it. It just happened not long ago. Carmelo family set up a GoFundMe, and they raised within a short period of time $530,000. When I watched the conservative media, it was a rage against the sanctity of white life. This is how they basically, spread how they reported it. It was the sanctity of white life against a black man. Not two men arguing and one losing their life. No, it was quite racially motivated, the reporting is. And he raised $530,000, and you know where that money came from, right? This was a black man. Where'd the money come from? It came from those who was looking at this as revenge. Well, it didn't stop there. Just a few weeks ago, a white woman named Shiloh Hendricks was filmed calling a 5-year-old black autistic kid the N-word because the kid stole from her 18-month-old son's diaper bag at a park. Anybody seen that video? Well, she herself set up a GoFundMe saying that her family's life was in jeopardy and death threats, and they had to move out of the neighborhood and all kind of things. She had to take her son, the baby out of school. All right. Guess how much she raised on her GoFundMe? Oh, you guessed it. Y'all are good at math. She raised $773,000. Mostly by who? White folks. And then just a few days ago, this happened. A man was accused of killing a police officer because his son had died by the hands of a cop, a deputy, and the father wanted to get revenge, and so he decided to run over the man he thought who killed his son. Y'all remember that? And what black people were excited about was, number one, the crime that this black man committed. And then they were excited about this video when he was leaving the courtroom.
So the court will now set no bond until Tuesday, when we'll review the statute for continuing no bond under these unusual and very tragic and terrible circumstances. Where will the defendant be housed, and will he be safe? And I ask that because he was transferred, as I understand it, to Clermont County yesterday.
That's correct.
On my order.
That's correct.
And will he be returned to Clermont County until Tuesday?
It's our understanding he'll be returned to Clermont.
And you have a safe environment for him there in Clermont County?
Yes, sir.
You'll return him on Tuesday, May the 6th at 8:30 a.m. for a hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, for the record, we'd ask the court to put a bond on him now, but we understand that it's not a bond hearing is going to request.
All right, no bond.
Thank you.
Y'all see his face right there? They beat the hell out of him. Who beat the hell out of him? The police. They beat the hell out of him. And if you notice, behind him and in the room behind them, filled with police officers, filled with them.
Here. And we can hold him at no bond for 72 hours,
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
And this is the moment where people, even Roland Martin celebrated, and black liberals, their YouTube channels and Instagrams and TikTok videos celebrated this moment.
And so not.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Black people celebrated that moment right there because they felt that he had did that for them. Come on, Kendall. All this GoFundMe money, but can't go fund outreach programs. Can't do it. When Kamala Harris had to run for president because Joe Biden had outlived his time in the presidency, and he should have left, but he decided to rerun, and then Donald Trump made him look like a fool. The Democrats woke up and said, we got to get him out of there. Well, that's y'all's fault. So you put in Kamala late in the game. Well, she's in there. So what did y'all have to do? Y'all had to raise money. And guess who came together and raised those millions of dollars in a short period of time, over a couple of days? Black folks. But let us ask you all to help this black family, help maybe 10 black young men get off the street, and they're smart, they have an opportunity to go to college, and I do a college fund. All of it. Let us expose some of the potential prodigies of these young black men and women who are good at this, good at that. Let me do a fundraiser. If I can get $10, I'd be lucky. But y'all raise millions for Kamala Harris, who still lost. That brother is already dead inside the moment his son took his, Yeah. So these stories keep showing us something. This Rodney Hinton Jr. story showed us something. All right, his son name was Ryan. Ryan, yeah. The father's Rodney. The son is Ryan. This is out of Cincinnati. Okay, so this race baiting is coming from both sides, y'all, and this is identity politics. And it's on both sides, y'all. And if you get a chance, because I like to cite a lot of my sources when I do shows, and I want y'all to pay attention to what do you mean. Our YouTuber here, I think he's brilliant. You all know him. This young man right here, y'all know him. Go to his channel. And he did a 14-minute piece on it's about to get a lot worse in the United States. All right, this is what do you mean? And it was brilliant. And I want to just spread the wealth here. All right. So today we're talking about the Nottoway Plantation. And I get it. This whole thing, the fire. So I went online and I looked at theroot.com and they showed us all of the funny memes from the burning of this plantation. Yeah. And what is his government name? Is it John? Is it John McCrae? Monkey Moves? Yes, John McCrae. It's his channel though is called What Do You Meme? All right, all the Galatians put it up there. He's brilliant. So I'm gonna see if I can play a couple of these. See what they play. I hope I don't know. And some of these I will say. I'm gonna be honest. I did laugh at some of them. I'm just going to be honest. I couldn't help it. The reason, I laugh is because black people are just brilliant. They will find some humor in everything, but they find very creative ways to do it. All right? I mean, some of it was just, I'm just glad nobody got hurt, but some of it was just funny. All right. She's sleeping to the white noise of the burning. I'm gonna be honest. Some of it was quite ingenious. All right. I lost. Okay, that right there. That wasn't supposed to happen, but. All right. Now I gotta find out how do I break this back out? Where did it go? Where did it go? Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, the most in this region.
The largest plantation in America just burned down. Here's an example, another one, and another one. But that's not even the craziest part. Nottoway Plantation was a plantation resort. Could you imagine a Holocaust labor camp being a place you could get a spa day, a massage, and chill by the pool? Well, we don't got to worry about that anymore because Nottoway is gone. Let the tape roll.
That's deep. He did a lot of cussing. I saw that one. Let it burn. And he the firefighter. He like he ain't gonna touch it. See, some of it was kind of funny. I mean, I'll be honest. What's this one? All right, that one didn't play. This is the one I just saw. Okay. They got a whole bunch of them here, y'all. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. That's wrong. That's just wrong. That's wrong, y'all. That's wrong. Wrong. I already know what that looks like. I already know. What? Oh, Lord have mercy. All right. Let me keep going here. What's this? Okay. It's about 12 slides. You know what that is, y'all. Y'all already know what that is. I already knew what that was going to be like.
Where the fans at?
I don't know what that's all about. All right. And so it goes on, y'all. Some of these were quite hilarious. I think there were a couple here on Facebook. Oh, here's one here. I'm sick of her. I'm so sick of her. I mean, some of them were hilarious. All right. Yeah, like, where you going with this? I think I'm already there. And obviously, here we go. Of course. Black folks, they're just clever. It's just clever. But who I want to go to is Reese. Brother, what is his name? Reese Waters. All right. He played some videos here from a couple of people, a young man who worked there as a tour guide. And I want y'all to see what he says about this. All right.
What was going on the inside, huh?
I used to be a tour guide at Nottoway Plantation. Nottoway was not talking about history properly. They regularly threatened my job because I was, quote, too emotional about the historical context and slavery there. I was there from 2017 till 2020 when COVID hit. The amount of ridiculous nonsense that I had to talk about on that tour was overwhelming. Dutch people, when they came in, because there were thousands of people from all around the world that would come in, the Dutch people knew more about the history of the transatlantic slave trade than the majority of people that worked at the plantation. I'm glad it burned down. Make no mistake.
Wow.
Well, all right then.
Yeah, Reese is hilarious, y'all. I love it when I see, especially African American men, find their niche audience, and take what they have, their God-given gifts and talents, their expressions and their character, and be able to do that in a medium like this in YouTube, and be able to bring a lot of the receipts the way he do. And he's not vulgar. He doesn't do all that cussing, he don't play a whole lot of nasty stuff. I like Reese Waters, and it's rare for me to say that I like a YouTuber. But then what he did was, let's go to about 9 minutes. And then he played some of the history of Nottoway from a brother. Was it a brother? How many minutes is 9?
Main thing is the preservation of history is so important.
As he said, it's important to preserve history. Why don't we get into the history a little bit of Nottoway Plantation, shall we?
The scene behind me is a plantation house in Louisiana that is burned down. It's burning down in this video. But this is not just any plantation house. This was the largest antebellum plantation house in the South, owned by one of the richest enslavers in the South. This is the Nottoway Plantation in Louisiana. It was built by enslaved Africans in 1859. It was owned by this guy, John Randolph. Now, John wasn't even from Louisiana. He was from Virginia originally, but he came from a wealthy slave-owning family, and his dad was hired by the federal government to do something in Louisiana, and he moved with him. Now, originally, he wanted to make it into a cotton plantation, the same type of plantation that he was used to in Virginia. But he noticed that the climate in Louisiana was a lot different, so he changed it to a sugar plantation. And because of that, he ended up tripling his family's wealth. John Randolph enslaved 176 people, but the plantation house itself was built around the same time as the Civil War. John didn't want to fight in the Civil War. He was scared. So he sent 3 of his sons and he asked, how much money do I have to give to keep me out of this? And he was a huge financial backer of the Confederacy in Louisiana. When he realized that the Confederacy was losing, he left his wife in Louisiana, took 200 slaves, and went to Texas. Once the Civil War was over, he contracted with 53 bonded people, basically people that owed him money and were working to pay it off. It's just another form of slavery. He eventually died in 1883, and his wife eventually sold the plantation for $50,000. That's the equivalent of $1.9 million today. And now he has no legacy at all.
Why don't we pour one out for John Randolph, shall we?
Somebody take me.
And you'd have to hear Reese's commentary on that. But is he playing it right now?
But he didn't want to fight in the Civil War. This is so fascinating. He didn't want to fight in the Civil War. So he sent his sons to go fight in the Civil War. I mean, at least the rich people now have the decency to keep their whole family out of it. I don't know which one is worse.
He didn't want to fight, so he sent his sons to die in the war. That's sad. That really is absolutely sad, you all. So I was looking for conservative media as they reported on this. I specifically went over to Fox News and other conservative media on YouTube to see how they reported the burning of this plantation. Well, I'm going to read Historic Nottoway Plantation. This is Fox News. The largest antebellum mansion in the U.S. burned to the ground this week after a fire broke out Thursday, and there have been no reports of injuries or deaths connected to the fire. Fire crews worked to extinguish the flames. Okay, I'm ready for them to get into some history. Some staff members stated that they had gone into the museum and there was smoke, and when they returned, the whole room was in flames. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. Let's see if they can get to some history. Diagle noted in the post of the Iberville Parish government's Facebook page that the loss of Nottoway is not just a loss for Iberville Parish, but for the entire state of Louisiana. It was a cornerstone of our tourism economy and a site of national significance. Okay. Maybe the next paragraph, they'll go into the history of its national significance, because right there, I will agree of its national significance, okay? Next paragraph says the 64-room mansion was built by John Hamden Rudolph in the late 1850s, according to the multiple sources. It sat on more than 53,000 square feet. In addition to the dozens of rooms, yes, it contained 365 doors, windows, and 22 white columns. Fox 8 reported the property overlooked the Mississippi River. In the paragraph. Okay. There's got to be more. There is more. Rudolph first arrived in Louisiana in 1841 and began by planting cotton, but ultimately shifted to sugarcane. According to the LSU Scholarly Repository, the Scholarly Repository article also noted that the mansion was named Nottoway after the county in Virginia where his ancestors lived. Is there any more? Okay. U.S. Department of the Interior records cited by Axios show that Rudolph owned 155 slaves and 6,200 acres of land by 1860. That's one sentence. That's it. And then went back into the stuff that they feel that there's this guilt by ancestors of a particular color that it's difficult for them to report because of how it would make others feel. And they know they have to report something. So when they do report, especially when they report about slavery, they have to make it as brief as possible. And usually if they're talking to especially a white audience, they have to whitewash it. They have to whitewash it because that audience on Fox ain't trying to hear you talk about this plantation and slaves. They ain't trying to hear that. How dare you bring that up? But here's the thing about that mansion. Every piece of it was put up by slaves. That's the history that I was reading. But I'm going to show you something else here that's quite interesting. All right? Because there is another place of significance. Stonemason Colin Williamson trained enslaved people on the spot at the government's quarry at Aquia, Virginia. Enslaved people quarried and cut the rough stone that was later dressed and laid by Scottish masons to erect the wall of this other building. The slaves joined a workforce that included local white laborers and artisans from Maryland and Virginia, as well as immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, and other European nations. Construction on this place began in 1792, and the decision to place I'm not going to say the name, on the land by two slave states was Virginia and Maryland, ultimately influenced the acquisition of laborers to construct its public buildings. And every piece of it, slaves had their hand in the erecting of this most famous building and structure. Can y'all tell me which building and structure am I talking about? Antibodies. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And here's the thing. It wasn't just that place. It was also the Capitol building. Slaves had their hands, both slaves and free and former slaves had their hands in the building of this building. You got it, Gladys Johnson Ferguson. You got it. The White House and the Capitol building. I wonder how you all would feel if that building burned down. At one time it did. The American Revolution. The British came over here. The British are coming. And they burned it down. So if you do a tour, you'll see that there's still some brick that is burned. All right. Now, I'll be in Washington, D.C. this weekend. I'm trying to go down there Sunday to do a little tour. Of course, I obviously won't be able to get too close to the White House because of what y'all did. Your ancestors went down there and tried to tear up the Capitol building, so it's kind of fenced off. So I'm still going. And so I wonder how y'all would feel if the White House had burned. Would the narrative be a little different? Would you write the story differently? And would you write it differently because a black man sat in that seat in the highest office in the land, if not the world? Come on, Melvin Cody. War 1812. I know I said the American Revolution. How would you feel if the White House had met his demise like the plantation? And will you tell me that it's a whole different situation? I want to know. What do you have to say? I want to tell y'all something about history and buildings and structures, especially in America. I remember, y'all remember, just a few years ago when the church, what is that? Notre Dame? Remember when it burned? We didn't know what to make of it because it wasn't really about an attack of African Americans or black people. You didn't know really the history of that place, that profound place. And I remember doing a show about it. Rogers, I think I did. Didn't I do a show on the burning of the Notre Dame? And how I did not want it to burn. I was wishing that the firemen would save it, do their best to save it. Why? Because it is world history. It has great significance. And when I saw that the plantation here in America had burned, I was saddened by it. I didn't rejoice like y'all did because of the historical significance. It would be different because the grounds were not a plantation. It's really what the house represents. There you go, Cooley. And what does the house represent? Because the house still represents slavery. Can y'all agree or disagree with me that the White House still represents slavery? Because how many men sat in that White House? Or how many men were part of the executive branch, the head of the executive branch, and owned slaves? Baby girl, she's bad timing, baby girl, bad timing. And owned slaves. And by the time Abraham Lincoln became the president, what number was he, y'all? 14th, 15th, 16th president? And then he gave us this thing called the Emancipation Proclamation, which did not free all the slaves. It just freed the slaves in certain territories. But here's the thing about Abraham Lincoln. Many of your grandfathers had a picture of him and white Jesus in the kitchen. Black folks loved Abraham Lincoln because he freed the slaves, all right? But here's the problem with the washing of the history is that he didn't free the slaves because he loved them. This was a political move for the betterment of the Union staying together. He freed them so that he could keep the Union together. But here's the caveat. He said out of his own mouth or his writings, whichever, that he would have kept slavery if it was to save the Union. That's odd. Come on. And later on, it was President Kennedy, because Kennedy wasn't president. But it became Kennedy and it became MLK after that. So Lincoln said, if I could preserve the Union and keep slavery, let's do that. I got one word for you, man. It's called redacted. Yes. All right. So you mean to tell me 16 presidents could not end slavery? That first president who sat in that White House, the White House became a representation of who was sitting there. You understand what I'm saying here? But here's the thing. After the slaves were free, the next guy, after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, he got in the office, and that promise of 40 acres and a mule was taken from you by the next guy sitting in that White House. That's why you didn't get nothing. Clarence Lewis said, it's an excellent read. I have gifted one of my pastors. I would love to have that. Joan, I would love to. Let me put a star next to your name. I'm going to go on Amazon right after the show and get that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lie until we learn to study and read for ourselves. Absolutely. Come on, Cheryl. He wasn't who you thought he was. Neo Jim Crow. Y'all smart. So the next guy, was it Andrew Johnson? There's an Andrew Jackson, and there's, I think it was Johnson after him. He said, no, y'all can't give these Negroes this. And what did he do? He gave reparations to the white slave owners who lost. Because slavery is over. Who's going to work the land? I'm losing the farm. So the next president gave a PPP loan to who? White slave owners, former slave owners. And where was he sitting? In the house called White. So I'm gonna ask y'all the question again. Would you feel the same way and celebrating if the White House had burned? The problem with our discussions, thank you, Cooley, is Johnson. I keep thinking of Cooley High. Every time I see your name, I think of Cooley High. Cooley High. The problem with when you're talking to African Americans is their lack of understanding history. Thank you, Jefferson Davis. Right? Jefferson Davis. So their lack of history, which caused people to celebrate when something burns down. You're like, I'm so glad it's gone. I'm not glad it burned down. Because I would have loved to have brought my grandchildren there to show them this is history. This is history. Jefferson Davis was the one who was fighting, who was, what was it? Jefferson Davis was the one who was debating against Lincoln, I believe. Is that right, Melvin? Where Melvin at? I got so much history up here that I got to figure out where to put it. Jefferson Davis was, I think, Confederacy, right? All right, somebody quote me. All right, because I think I'm right. I think Spirit is trying to tell me I'm right. Let me see what y'all saying here. There it is. See, there it is. Jefferson Davis was the prayers of the Confederate. I knew I was. Thank you, Holy Ghost. I don't want to look like a fool here, misleading the people. There it is, Jefferson Davis. All right, so preservation is important. Come close. There's a documentary on the History Channel called The Men Who Built America, or something like that. And it talks about these men that you hear about today, but you may not know why they became famous. John D. Rockefeller gave a lot of money for the advancement of colored people at that. All right? John D. Rockefeller gave millions of dollars to black institutions. But yet, I'm not going to say. Andrew Carnegie. Y'all say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. All right? Some of these guys were oil tycoons. They were railroad tycoons. All right? Henry Ford, obviously, the automobile, the Model T, he created the whole, what do you call that line? The line. And that whole assembly line that he created was copied by Motown. Motown copied that whole assembly line because of Henry Ford. Cornelius Vanderbilt. If you bank at Chase, Chase was once called Chase Manhattan Bank, and that is J.P. Morgan. If you have a brokerage account with Charles Schwab, he go back then. He was like the assistant to one of these guys. And I mean, the history is just amazing when you pay attention to it. George Westinghouse, all right? These are the men who built America. But there was a man by the name of George Pullman, okay? His factory is in my backyard. Come on, Gregory, the Rothschilds, okay? All right? But in my backyard is Pullman. It's called Pullman because of his name, George Pullman. George Pullman did what Walt Disney did. He went down there to Florida to check out some land so that he can build an amusement park. And he did it quietly. He did not want it to leak. Okay? That's right, TT. Industrial Revolution. Now, there's two industrial revolutions. This was the Industrial Revolution of the mid-1800s, and then we've got the Industrial Revolution that happened during great-grandmama's time at the turn of the century. Just like they're different, what would you may call it, the black migrations from the South. We ought to look at it as everybody was coming up from the South to the North in the 40s. That's not true. There was two waves of African Americans coming up. And Chicago had a lot to do with that second wave because of the Defender newspaper here in Chicago. That's a whole nother story. Just like the Great Awakenings. We often think of one Great Awakening in the late 1800s, but there was a couple Great Awakenings. I think it was 2 or 3. Melvin Cody, you could correct me here. He is my resident historian, Melvin Cody. He's the resident historian. Okay, so these George Pullman was the largest employer for African Americans. Hence, we get the Pullman Porters. The Pullman Porters, among African Americans, were highly respected men. Even though their jobs were rigorous, they were disrespected, they were spit on, they was cussed at, all kind of things. But when they came home to be in the communities with their families and here in Bronzeville, they were highly respected. And so the factory is behind me, literally in my backyard. And he built the first corporate city in America. The first corporate city in America. In my backyard. Still today, people from all over the world come to my backyard. I see all kind of folk, Asians, whites, Czechs, Russians. They back in my backyard just messing around. Like I sick my dog on them. Get off my lawn. All right? But he built this city and he paid the employees, and he did a automatic deduction from their checks, which paid for the rents that they were staying in because he built the homes. He built the banks. He built the parks. There was a 1,000-seat movie theater. This is back in the 1800s, y'all. He built the library. He built the hotel. All that's in my backyard. And then obviously the plant where the trains are built. It was something that no one has ever seen. But what happened was the stock market crashed. We often think about 1929, but there was another depression, recession in the 1800s that happened that caused people to lose. You know, the prices were high, but They were being laid off. For those who were still working for Pullman, what he was doing was he had lowered their pay, but didn't lower their rents. And this is where the Pullman, the workers went on a strike. Well, these men that I mentioned were anti-union. All of them hated unions. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, Westinghouse, Pullman hated them. And because they decided to unionize, they had to call out the National Guard. When you go over there in my backyard, there's a museum back there. There's two, actually. When you go back to the small museum, there is a movie being played. It tells the history of George Pullman. And when they become Chicago, hook me up. I'll give you a nice tour. But when you watch the movie, it's whitewashed. It's whitewashed. Because I know for a fact, as a young man reading the encyclopedia, I heard about the Pullman strikes and how people died because of it. There was a riot. And you can Google right now the Pullman riots and you'll see people died. But when you look at the movie, they X'd that out of there. They said although no one was hurt, it was blah, 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 blah. And I said, ain't that a shame? Why are y'all doing this? Reason why I'm bringing this up is about the preservation, because then the buildings of Pullman began to burn down. And the last one to burn was in 1998, around that time, when I was walking through the neighborhood and a homeless man set the thing on fire. And I was praying that the firemen would come and other blacks was like, burn it down. Because of who George Pullman was. Burn it down. He was a miser. He was cheap. They called him a racist. But he hired black people because white folks didn't want that job. All kind of stuff. They said, burn down. I said, don't. Why would you do that? This brings in big business in our neighborhoods. All right? In our ward. We call them wards here. And the preservation of these buildings, you bring your children here so they can talk about. So what happened was, after the fire, we elected the first black president of the United States. Here's the irony, y'all. Come close. We elected the first black president of the United States. His name is Barack Hussein Obama. Now, if you hear white folks say it, it's Hussein. All right. I did say encyclopedia. I had him, boy. I had him. Okay. He got elected. And I think it was in his second term, he brought Michelle Obama down here. And what happened was, out of all the presidents we had, white, the black president came to Chicago and designated a white establishment, Pullman, a whole town, and designated it as a United States preserved monument. And I was there. People were everywhere, but I didn't know what was going on. And I heard Michelle Obama say, this is an important moment because my grandfather was a Pullman porter. I was like, the irony. The irony. And then he left. And about a few months later, I started seeing men and women walking around the neighborhood with Ranger hats on. Then I understood. So now my backyard is preserved and protected. Who protected it? Barack Hussein Obama. He protected it. And there's a museum back there for the Pullman porters. And you all know that A. Philip Randolph started the unionizing of the Pullman porters, and he was the one who who formed the 1963 March on Washington, Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. All these things come together, they tie together. They tie together into my life because when Martin Luther King went to Memphis to march on behalf of the streets, the garbage workers, even though he was ill, they asked him to get up and go to the church the night before the march so that he can speak to the people who had gathered. And where was that place? It was my headquarters, Mason Temple Church of God in Christ. And that's where he gave his speech. He'd been to the mountaintop, and the next morning he's gone. All right? So history, African American history as well as United States history is a big part of my life. You understand? So when I see things burn down, I get sad because that establishment, that erection there, I don't like saying that word because y'all are nasty, is our history. Good, bad, ugly. And it's you all who don't understand history who are celebrating when a monstrosity like that plantation burns. You celebrate something that couldn't have been preserved. I hated that they were using it for what they were using it for, weddings. Can you imagine Auschwitz, Germany, where they gassed the Jews, are now used for weddings, vacation trips. They got a bar, in there and a swimming pool. Can you imagine that? Well, that's what they were doing with that plantation. And it was mostly white folks inviting some of their black friends for their wedding receptions at a plantation. And it's sad. So let me talk about you. I talked to Carolyn Wagner. Carolyn Wagner is one of my white friends who I love very dearly. She worked among us. She understands the language, and her only problem with us is that she don't look like us. And if she say anything Ebonic, you would say that she is appropriating. And it's difficult because I understand the struggle that she's in, because when I worked for a Catholic school, it was only 2 blacks there, and I was one of the two, that is. And it was difficult even for me because when I walked in, the white kids called me Uncle Sir. They would jump in my arms, white kids, the little boys and the little girls, and they would just hug me because there was something different about me, even though I was black. They saw a uncle, father figure in me, and it was the whole school, the grammar school and the high school. They loved me. The problem was their parents recognized that there's a black man up there, and these white kids are jumping on him, loving on him. I knew how to speak their language. I need you to know that America will always see a black man or a white man, a black woman or a white woman, no matter what sector you work in. The Story of O.J. is a song that maybe you don't want to listen to, but Jay-Z got it right. He forgot that he was still black. It didn't matter who you marry. You can marry a white woman. You could have mixed kids, all right? You can work, you can be a CEO of a corporation. It doesn't matter if you worship at a white church and you're the black one in there. It don't matter. It don't matter how much they love you. If you say the wrong thing, then your blackness will be loud. So I was speaking to Carolyn Wagner and how she was treated unjustly by a black associate pastor who was young, in his 30s. And I wanted to minister to her because I understood. She was speaking the language of the young women who she was assigned to, which happened to be predominantly black. And when in Rome, you do what the Romans do, and she was able to speak their language, and they loved it. But one did not like it and reported her to the powers that be, and they dismissed her. I'm bringing this up because I need y'all to understand that everything in America is black and white. And you can be living in a neighborhood that's mixed. You can worship, all right, among whites if you're black for 30, 40 years. But whenever these things happen, like the OJ killing, well, I said it that way. I shouldn't have said it that way, but the OJ situation, the Kyle Rittenhouse, the Trayvon Martin, the Osteen Metcalf, you name it, the Rodney Hintons, all these things. Whenever those things happen, we remember what color we are in. We are. It is up to black historians to help the black public to understand what these places are significant to them. Yes, retell the stories from the perspective of heroic black figures and organized resistance. I'm with you, Melvin Cody, when you're right. It is up to the black leaders to lead these young people into the truth of why was that plantation erected. Now, let me sit you down and show you something important. I'm going to read something from somebody who said something very interesting. But before that, I want to show y'all something here. I saw this and I thought it was good. This is a leader opposed to a boss. The boss take advantage, but the leader empowers. The boss blames, but the leader fixes. The boss say, go, give orders. But the leader says, let's go and let's set the pace. The boss, I'm literally the best, and he takes credit. But the leader says, you're literally the best, and then he gives the credit. The boss know how it is done. But the leader says, he shows how it's done. This is how we could help the young people when it comes to something so significant that burns down. Now, I'm going to give you some scripture. It only takes really one that can explain my reasons for doing this, and y'all have heard it before, but I want to quote from someone who wrote on this particular burning, and I thought it was brilliant. They said, from the outside looking in, it is amazing how the stain of slavery has affected black people. Now, I want y'all to, you who all have critical thinking, listen to how it's written, and if you're intelligent, then you would understand why they said what they said. It is amazing how the stain of slavery has affected black people to the point that white people don't even understand. This is like a climax or orgasmic relief. Whether I agree with it or not, it's amazing when you look at the fissure, F-I-S-S-U-R, the fissure, which is really like a crack, a break in the opening, like a cleavage, okay? The fissure within the soul of the black man. This burning is saying a lot about a race of people who will take anything to be made whole. That's the line that I love the most. This burning is saying, this burning of this plantation is saying a lot about a race of people who will take anything to be made whole. That's why you all celebrated OJ. That's why you celebrated the burning of this plantation. You just want to be made whole. But let me tell you, you will never be satisfied if we did give you reparations. You will never be satisfied. Reparations in Illinois, there was the first reparations that was approved started at my church in Evanston, Illinois, by one black woman. And it's happening right now in Evanston. You can Google it. I keep telling y'all, history keeps hitting my house. One black woman who used to be an alderwoman at my church started the reparation movement. And it went all over the country because the city of Evanston approved black reparations. Go ahead and Google it. This burning is saying a lot about a race of people who will take anything to be made whole. Any sign of retribution, be it through nature, the hand of God, or by the malice of a man. It's like gobbling up crumbs off the floor of the master's table. It's food for the emptiness to their innermost soul. It makes me cry for the pain of the black man. We are so very, very wounded at our core. And this is why we will easily celebrate the destruction of something so historical. So the writer of Proverbs says something interesting here that maybe you can teach your children. Come on, Mary. You better preach this with me. That's why we must find our wholeness and value in Christ. Y'all weren't expecting me to go this way, were you? You came here so that I could celebrate the burning of that place? No, I cried when I saw that burning because history is being erased. I mean, your African-American history has already been erased by, the powers that be. But, Kenneth Booth, what are you saying here? I have a copy of the document from the president way back where my great, I want to say the fifth or sixth generation grandfather got his 40 acres and a mule. Look at that. Somebody got theirs. That's something else. Okay, what does it say here? Here's what the scriptures say. Don't wait in ambush at the home of the godly, and don't raid the house where the godly live. The godly may trip 7 times, but they will get up again. Y'all know King James read differently. A just man falls 7 times. Y'all know that, right? But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. Don't rejoice when your enemies fall. Don't be happy when they stumble. For the Lord will be displeased with who? You. And will turn his anger away from who? Them. You praying for revenge and God saying, no. No. Vengeance is mine. It ain't yours. Renee said, we aren't talking salvation. We are talking our rights and money they owe us. The Hebrew children got free, their own land, their salvation, the money. If you remove salvation, Renee Dean, if you remove salvation from anything that I'm saying, you're at the wrong address. He who controls the past controls the future. Black is taught to make black people feel ashamed. Therefore, events like OJ's verdict or the burning of the black, it's a form It's a form of catharsis. Now, somebody Google that word for me because Cody went there and brought a word that I ain't seen. Everything is about salvation. Everything. Everything. Because salvation causes a man to see the world in a different way. When we remove salvation, we go into our flesh. Elaine, this is Proverbs 24:17. What did it say here? It said, don't fret because of evildoers. Don't envy the wicked. For evil people have no future. The light of the wicked will be snuffed out. So let God do what he does about the wicked, but you have no right to rejoice. No one knows what caused the fire yet, Diania. I did that show, the ontological. Don't get me started. My child, fear the Lord and the King. Don't associate with rebels. Black Lives Matter. For disaster will hit them suddenly. Who knows what punishment will come from the Lord and who else? And the King. This is obviously dispensational. Come on, Layla, give me the definition. Catharsis is the experience of emotional release, often described as a purification or cleansing of pent-up emotion resulting in a feeling of relief. I have to watch Melvin because Melvin is he's not just a theologian, but he's a philosopher. And when you're talking to him, you better have your encyclopedia ready. Come on, Wanda. I'm trying to tell you. Salvation gives one a clear perspective. And if you can't add salvation into everything that you do, you won't be able to see life clear. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Let's see, Verena, what you had? I was supposed to do a show, part 2 today, and I got sidetracked. So, what you said here again? I got a good one topic for you. You may have disagreed. She said Zoom and similar platforms are about the worst thing to happen to the church in its 1900 plus year history. It gives folks the excuse to just not show up. All right. After 2 years of me complaining about rarely having Sunday school, an elder called and said, "Sis, thank you for protesting. Pastor said we can start Sunday school again, but only first and third Saturday nights." Well, the only person on Zoom were me and the elder, so they canceled it. And maybe we need to meet in person at church. I'm 45 minutes away, but I'd show up every Sunday morning. I'm wondering if folks, especially this coming up, for those worthless piece of paper, giving them the tithe. Okay, all right, she's going there. All right. I agree and disagree with you on that. Zoom. I agree and disagree with you. People are going to do what people do no matter the technology. Let me put this up here so y'all can know I'm done with the show. All right? That's the answer to this question. All right, I got 10 minutes and I'll end. People are going to do what they're going to do, and I keep saying that the pandemic showed us all how many were swimming naked. All right? There was already a decline in church attendance before the pandemic. The pandemic came and really just shattered that number. All right? Then the pandemic kind of relaxed a little bit, and people were looking for a reset as if they learned a lesson. Nobody learned a lesson. And I said, y'all ain't going to learn a lesson. You're going to go back to doing what you're doing because people, we are creatures of habit. And this is why God had to deal with the children of Israel out of Egypt. They left Egypt, but they was in Egypt for 400 in about, 30 years? That's a long time, generation after generation after generation, which also caused the assimilation of the generations, which means they begin to adapt the cultures and the religiosities of the Egyptian people, who were not monotheistic like the Jews were, but they were plural. They had a whole bunch of gods. All right? So they come out, which is why they gave Moses such a hard time. They come out of there, they cross the Red Sea, and then they get to a place where Moses disappears too long, and guess what happens? That 400 years of Egyptian, plus them being the chosen people, they already had their own little problems. They put that two together, they build a golden calf. Where'd they get that from? And they begin to just do what they known to do in a strange land. They did the same thing when they went to Assyrians captured them. I believe they did the same thing when they went to Babylon. They began to take on the beliefs of their oppressor. We often talk about this statue here. The Babylonians, they took on the practices of the Medes and the Persians. Okay? They took on the practices of the Greeks. They took on the practices of the Roman Empire. Here, these two legs represent the Rome. All right? That's just the way it is with people. And we are no different than those Jewish people. People will go and sit and be comfortable on Zoom. And then there are those people who just love to be in the presence of people, and they will go to the church. I am one of them today. There's only so much you can do on Zoom. But I wanted to smell perfume, smell cologne, shake a brother's hand, embrace him, tell him I love you, sit with him in church and hear the music play, hear a sermon, what have you. I wanted to be in the presence of people, because what the church did was we erased going to church, but we went to everything else where people are. Whether it was the movie theater, whether it was you went to sit and get a cappuccino from your favorite coffee shop. You went, to the lakefront. You went to go see Beyonce. She's in Chicago right now. You went down there to, Soldiers Field to sit among thousands of people. People will do what they want to. They are going to gather with people. They're going to go to the clubs. These same people who wasn't going to church, they were happy that the church shut down, but they went to all these other places. They went to the grocery store. Obviously, they had to go to the grocery store, but they went to other places they didn't have to go, but they went because they wanted to be around people, but they did not want to go to church. Why? Because they wasn't, come close, they just not that into you, God. God, can you hear me? He can. They just not that into you. Yes, Sherry, I'm with you. They just not that into you. So, if I like something, I'm gonna follow it wherever it go. If there's a good play, a really good play, I'm going to go see the Michael Jackson play on Broadway. Well, Chicago. It was the greatest play I had ever seen. And let me tell you, I started to look for tickets when it was in the next area, I was trying to drive all over the Midwest area to go see it again. To take my daughter and take my son and take whoever. I just want to go. Because if I like something listen, I'm going to go. I'm going to follow it. So whatever God got going on, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up. I'm just that much into him. Maybe it's the way God is presented. There's no maybe there, Melvin. It is. That is the way we presented God on a garbage pail. And we bring in these cultures and practices and gossips and all that stuff that grandmama had the same church that we have today. It's the same. It just look a little different. It just look a little different. But how I decided to present God was in a way that made mouths water. I want him. The woman at the well, she had to be convinced that whatever Jesus was giving her, she will never have to go to this well again to get it. Eventually, not right away, but eventually she was convinced. How do we know? Because she went running through town, come see a man. So when you are witnessing to people, your story should be so gripping that people will say, wow, tell me more about this man. Tell me more. He did what? He who? Oh, I want to know more about him. And this is why a testimony is important. Because if it happened to him, if he is so excited about this Ginsu knife, maybe I will be too. It dices, it slices, it cuts and pairs. You never have to sharpen this knife. And when you wash it in the dishwashing detergent, it does not rust. Ooh! And they say, don't take my word for it. Here's a testimonial. And all these endorsements come, you're like, I want that. Lord have mercy, I want it. So I testify about the goodness of God and what he's done for me in a way that's so convincing that people say, I want what he's having. I told y'all, you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. It's coming out the kitchen. You say, I want what he's having. So God, we thank you for what you've done. We thank you for the people who are here. We thank you for the wisdom that came across this room here. I pray for the people who are ignorant to the history of America so they can really see that there are advantages for keeping structures up so that we can teach our children. Watch out for the revisionist historians, but here's the real story. That building is there because. And the because we survived through it all, and here we are. And the children of Israel, y'all, Isaiah said, I thank you all for being the repairers of the breach, the restorers of the waste places. Build it back up or preserve it so that our children could have something, a story, and tell it to their grandchildren as well. But be careful though, because that stick, that serpent that Moses put up, God told him to take it down because the people was getting ready to start, they were starting to worship that thing. And that's what happened in the South with these Confederate statues. Whites were worshiping it. I gotta go, y'all. Take care of yourself. See you tomorrow on the show.
What are these for? Your elbows?
No.
Do you go like this?
No, it's for my feet.
What you mean?
I have to sit there. No, the other way. And my feet goes in.
Like, oh shit. Wait, you open your leg like that?
Yeah, for the doctor.
This wide? In the middle of it there?
fellas, does it seem like you can't get a good woman? Ladies, wonder why you can't keep a man? Then read The 4 Women That Men Desire, Volume 1, by Sirwalterj to figure out how to break the cycle. Go to Amazon.com to get your copy today.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?